Just a couple of weeks ago, local Heritage Academy held their graduation ceremony, and without pregnant senior Maddie Runkles, who was banned for not adhering to school rules. The controversy, which gained international attention, has seemed to lose its place in the news cycle. The school's website and the Facebook page are back online, and Ms. Runkles is reported to have celebrated a private ceremony celebrating her graduation. Is the story over, or should this conversation continue? What will be the fallout for the school? How will this issue impact current and future students? And should the administration consider changing the rules? Brian, what say you?
Well, for me, the story is long over. But again, the question comes up, what happens if it happens again next year and the year after that? I kind of have mixed feelings about it. She did sign a contract to adhere to what the rules of the school were, a religious school. But I also think she made the right choice. She could have decided to have an abortion. Now, if she had done that, and no one else would know about it but her and the doctor and maybe her immediate family, no one else would have known about it at that school. But you know, it's that fine line between the religion and the school and what the rules are. So.
Right. Ron?
She signed a contract at 5th grade.
Okay.
She was a woman of 18 years old.
They sign the contract renewal every year.
But she started to sign that contract in the 5th grade. And at the end of, she was 18 when this all happened. And as we looked at, I think one of the things we were asked to do was look at some of the people that had a review. And I think we've looked at some reviews, and I looked at a review that kind of mirrors my opinion. And it said, the Bible does not rate the severity of sins. God does not say number 1 is murder, number 2 is sexual immortality. He only says that they are sins. Therefore, if you punish Maddie because of a sin she committed, you have to punish every single senior who has broken the school policy. Maddie was not the only person that broke a school rule, and they still all walked across the stage but her. I also find it very difficult when I find that a lot of these things are dealt by all men. We get these boards of all one particular type of person, all white men. Now, I don't know if this is an all-male board.
It would be an all-male board.
It'd be an all-male board dealing with an issue like this. Again, I think Heritage Academy needs to come into modern times and deal with these things where you've got competent people of both genders dealing with some of the issues.
All right. Henry?
Ron,
Yeah.
I love you, man, but we're going to disagree. All right. Like you, I read the reviews. I read both sides, the pros and the cons. And to be fair, it was probably 40% pro in favor of Heritage and about 60% negative. And I can respect that. What I think the reviews failed to address is they weren't there. They weren't in that school. And in the one review that you read, sin is sin. That's essentially what the individual wrote. But there's consequences for actions. And even though you sin and you're forgiven, there still may be a lingering consequence beyond what the biblical definition of the sin is and punishment is. There may be a real world consequence you have to pay for. And unfortunately, Maddie had to face that. But you know, the one comment, the first one is I wanted to commend Heritage Academy on sticking with their principles and teaching and guiding and protecting our future generation. I think that's wonderful. But this young lady, if she would have gone and said, listen, I was engaged in premarital sex, would she have, and she was not pregnant, and she would have divulged that, would she have been met with the same discipline as someone who maybe was drinking alcohol or cheating on a test? Would she have been dealt with that same consequence? Because back in my day, a young lady or a young man that ended up becoming parents, they would have been expelled from Heritage Academy. There's no question. They would have been gone. If the male was found out he was out. Female is a little bit more obvious. They were out. My wife and I, we dated during school. We sat separate from each other, so the school didn't know until the end of our senior year that we were actually dating. We got engaged on our what winds up being a senior prom.
You didn't tell the school that?
It's none of the school's business. I was dating her. We had a relationship. I was dating her. It's none of the school's business. I stayed within the confines of what their parameters were. Okay? But getting down to the brass tacks of it, we don't know what transpired. Her father was on the school board, and I think that probably played a little bit into the fact that she was allowed to complete her education there. I'm glad she did. But getting back, how would Heritage have dealt with it if she would have not been pregnant? If she said, I was engaged, or if a male came through and said, I was engaged in premarital sex, how would Heritage have dealt with it?
Would it have been better, though, for her to have stayed quiet about it in the long run? For her and
She
for
could see it.
That's true, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's unconfessed sin, so it's how's she going to deal with it? Okay. Unfortunately, in the situation, Maddie paid a really strong penalty for it, and it's a shame that she wasn't able to walk the stage, but she was fortunate to graduate.
But she did walk a stage in a church.
She did it in her own private form. But really, when we get into it, when it's all said and done, she graduated with an education from Heritage Academy, which is a good school.
So we don't run out of time, but I want to ask real quick. So what's more important? That she faces consequences, or does she get forgiveness? Brian?
I would say the consequences part, personally.
Ron?
Forgiveness, and then change the board to where there's women on the board.
Yeah, I like that point. Henry?
She sought forgiveness. It's done, but there's always consequences to decisions you make.
And you're going to have the last word on that. But coming up after the break, the hung jury is probably a first round win for Bill Cosby. But is round 2 upcoming? Our panel has plenty of opinions when we return.